Our reading today is entitled Essential by the Reverend Lynn Unger. How do you know what's essential? Could you have predicted this particular version of paring down? Perhaps your work is essential, but maybe not. The face you wear to the outside world, the picture in the mirror has probably slipped. Even the fundamentals of human touch might not be required to assure us that we are not alone. Who could have imagined that we would somehow come down to making bread without yeast, to the fact that with nothing more than food and water and air and time, even the least of us will find a way to rise. Our worship theme for the month of May is integrity. And I'm wondering with you this morning, what does it look like to live a life of integrity? Especially now when all around us is changed and changing, when life itself might feel scary or out of control, or when it's really hard to know what is true and who is honest. Where does integrity live today? Well, today I want to reflect with you about our own integrity, not anyone else's. That would be a whole nother sermon, and we can't control other people anyway. In the business world, they talk about three things that are often present when ethical lapses in the workplace occur. Opportunity. So, for example, there's the opportunity to commit fraud because appropriate safeguards and checks and balances aren't in place. Second one is rationalization. That happens when people think things like, well, everyone else is doing it, so I might as well. And then the third quality that's often present when ethical lapses take place is the quality of pressure, being under pressure. Pressure can be overwork. It could be an internal pressure on yourself to perform and get ahead, to get that promotion. It could be all kinds of economic pressure, whether the pressure to simply feed your family, put your kid through college, or perhaps the pressure of enormous amounts of debt. Or it could be pressures like an addiction pressure that drives your behavior. So even folks who feel like they are honest people of integrity, when at least two of these three qualities are present, they might find their ethical principles slipping. Y'all, today I want to say that I think our whole country is experiencing at least two, if not three, of these qualities right now. And the first I want to name is pressure, pandemic pressure. It's not the same kind of pressure for everyone, but it's pressure nonetheless. Everything has changed in a very short amount of time. There's deep economic pressure. Again, not the same for everyone, but the economic and financial uncertainty and pressure is real. There's the pressure parents are feeling around caring for their children as schools are closed, whether parents are able to stay home and work from home, or parents are still having to leave the home to work. For some, there's the pressure of completely changing your work life to adapt to this new reality of physical distancing. There's the pressure of anxiety, especially for those of us who are in more high-risk categories in terms of our health. There's the real pressure our healthcare workers are under themselves. For some, there's the intense pressure of grief. and for others, the intense pressure of loneliness. Fundamentally, fear for your life and the lives of your loved ones is a kind of pressure we are under. As Lynn Unger writes in her poem, the face you wear to the outside world, the picture in the mirror, has probably slipped. She wrote that poem this week, by the way. So there's pressure, but secondly, there's also rationalization, particularly right now, political rationalization. Increasingly, we live our lives in bubbles or at echo chambers, engaging with people who think more like we do. It's easy to fall into ways of thinking and talking and acting with disdain for those outside of our particular circle. We can rationalize a whole lot of harmful language and behavior when we think we're the good ones and others are the bad ones. We can rationalize as well a whole lot of inhumane public policy when the only guide for voting is which party proposes that public policy. And then the third category, opportunity. In the business world, we ask, are there safeguards and accountability? In our social life together, we might ask, who is watching and telling the truth about what is happening? So in this context, as Unitarian Universalists, how do we figure out how to live with integrity? As a tradition, we have always focused on deeds, not creeds, we say. What we do and how we live our lives today matters much, much more than what we say we believe, matters much, much more than the finer points of theological debate and whether we're going to go to heaven or who does. We believe in acting in the here and now. So joining our tradition means that you're joining a relationship and an adventure. We covenant to journey together in the spirit of mutual love. And we are also asked to affirm certain principles and to attempt to put those principles at the center of our living. The two I most often talk about are the first and the seventh principles. The first one is affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every person, period. And the seventh one is living with a respect for that interdependent web of life of which we are a part. Remembering that whatever we do affects all other life, including the life of this planet. So those two I like to think of as holding up the other five principles. And I just want to name those five today. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in the society at large. And the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It's a tall order. I don't think anybody says that practicing Unitarian Universalism is easy. And I don't know about you, but in my day-to-day life, there is no way I am living up to all of those principles all the time. It's a work of a challenge of my whole life to continually try to get closer to living out those principles. And lately, I have to say, I have been particularly challenged to hold the inherent worth and dignity of all people especially those who are not holding respect for my own life and the lives of the people I love with the same care that I feel like I am holding theirs. I hear from many of you that same struggle. So what does that mean for my sense of my own integrity? Well, I want to name that integrity is sometimes held up as a state that is attained, right? That some people just get to that place of integrity, which we sometimes talk about as a state of perfect consistency, where what we say, we believe is matched always by our actions on the outside. A person with integrity is someone who always does the right thing. And frankly, y'all, I don't actually believe that person exists. None of us are perfectly consistent all the time. Measuring ourselves against perfect moral consistency actually isn't even all that helpful, I find. In fact, I think it encourages something even more dangerous in us, which is a kind of moral self-righteousness and superiority, one that is not honest about our own shortcomings, our own vulnerabilities, our own humanity. So instead today, I want to invite us to think of integrity as an ongoing practice of integration. As Rachel Naomi Remen writes in her book, Kitchen Table Wisdom, quote, reclaiming ourselves usually means coming to recognize and accept that we have in us both sides of everything. We are capable of fear and courage, generosity and selflessness and selfishness, vulnerability and strength. These things do not cancel each other out, but offer us a full range of power and response to life. Life is as complex as we are, she says. Sometimes our vulnerability is our strength, our fear develops our courage, and our woundedness is the road to our integrity. End quote. When we think of integrity as wholeness, and remember, integrity is related to the word integrated, we might understand it differently. Perhaps a person of integrity is a person who has seen and accepted both the good and the bad within them, who can stop and observe those impulses within themselves, who knows that there are times they mess up and don't live up to the principles that they profess, and are honest and forthright about that, rather than keeping that part of themselves hidden in shame. Someone who is able to see that, to name it, and also to choose to practice better next time. There's an old Japanese Buddhist tale about a wise teacher, an old monk, who trained young boys who aspired to be like him. And one day he decided to teach them a very particular lesson. So he called them all to him, and he told them that as he grew older, he was less able to care for them in the same way, that he was not able to provide everything for them and for the temple there that he had been able to provide previously. And so he enlists their help with this and gives them instructions for how they are to help. He tells them that they are to go to the wealthy town nearby, to go to the neighborhood where the wealthiest people live in particular. And when no one is watching, and only when no one is watching, the boys are to steal money from the wealthy inhabitants of that city. Well, the boys protested at first, because this went against everything their teacher, the monk, had taught them about living ethical lives, living moral lives. But the monk said, it's okay now because it is absolutely necessary for the survival of the temple and the school here. So all the boys got up and left. They walked outside, all except for one of them. Why did you not go with the others? The monk asked the boy. Do you not want to help save our temple? I do, master, said the boy quietly. But you said that we had to steal when no one was watching. And I know that there is no place on earth that I would not be seen, for I would always see myself. As a Unitarian Universalist, I know I won't always live up to the principles that I profess to support. And part of the spiritual practice of our faith is self-reflection, observing ourselves and our lives honestly, seeing ourselves wholly, knowing that no matter where on earth I go, there I am, warts and all. May we understand that our broken places and places of vulnerability are part of being human. This time we are living through together is giving us ample opportunities to practice that kind of self-reflection, to see what is coming up when we are under a lot of pressure and what we do with that, how we choose to be in that. May we know that even when we don't live up to our own ideals, we are part of a broader community of faith, engaging this messy world together. Together, maybe we can hold the enormous pressure of this time. Together, maybe we can cut through the political rationalizations that don't put the worth and dignity of every person at the center. Together, we can be safeguards of loving accountability for one another, so that even when we feel like everything is falling apart, there is a rootedness that remains, a community that accepts us in our wholeness, reminds us of the principles to which we can return over and over again, and calls us to our best selves, to lives of courage and love. That's where integrity lives. May it be so for all of us. Amen.